Let's, of course, kick off with the key focus today for the markets, that being the MPC meeting today. This comes after the Naira struck that all-time low against the dollar last week, 164.85 to the dollar. Now, the CBN has broken its own rule of selling Naira to dollars into the market above that 3%, 150 mark against the dollar. What are we likely to see today? Are we likely to see another hike in the NPR, or could we actually have a change in policy towards devaluation of the Naira?
There's a lot of speculation about what we could see. I think we'll see a combination. I think there will be a big hike in the NPR to try and curtail liquidity in the market. I also think they might play around with the cash reserve ratio and increase it for the banks. And they might also make our policies change in either removing the range, the plus or minus 3% range for the currency they've put in place, or expanding it or moving it upwards to reflect market reality.
At this point in time, to what extent do you think speculators are driving the Naira lower?
Well, I think in terms of speculation, I think the CBN has an idea that there might be speculators. That's why they've announced all these audits of banks' FX transactions, because through the official window, the banks are only supposed to bid for certified actions and not for speculation. In terms of speculation, I think the comments by the CBN governor has spooked the market to an extent that Naira will not be defended and could be devalued. And also bear in mind the fact that the Nigerian government has not kept with its revenue forecast, especially in the non-oil sector, customs receipts, for example. Depreciation of Naira would help pay for the increased minimum wage that they've put in place. So there's rumors that possibly the government is not too far away from control the devaluation of the Naira.
How far do you think it is away? Do you think that we should have it sooner rather than later, perhaps towards the end of the year?
I think if they are going to devalue the Naira, I think it will be a controlled devaluation. I think what you will see is that they'll move towards a new range, which the CBN will think it is more effective in defending. And that the start of that might be announced from the MPC meeting today.
Let's just take a shift in focus to the equity market. We see it rebounded last week, gaining 1.8% on the week. But I know that you're still in bonds and cash at this point in time, shifting away from equities. Just tell us about the strategic thinking behind that focus in your portfolio.
Well, we believe that the stock exchange cannot have sustained recovery until we have the retail market regains the retail domestic market regains confidence in the stock exchange, and that has not happened. So what we're seeing is pension funds, some large institutional investors, and some foreign investors that are pushing the market up, and profit taking coming in place. So until the stock exchange reforms are embedded, reforms for stockbrokers, and the outcome of certain litigations that the SEC has put in place in the tribunal for some of the stockbrokers, I don't think you will see the retail market come back. Until the retail market comes back, you can't have a sustained increase in the stock exchange. For that reason, we're moving more towards bonds and cash at the moment.
Just give us an idea of what percentage you're putting into cash and what percentage you're putting into the bond market.
At the moment, because we're seeing quite a lot of corporate activity in the corporate bond market, especially things like Tower Aluminium had a bond that came into the market, and we're seeing some state government bonds come in. So we're putting about 40% in bonds, 25% in cash, and the rest in equity. Let's
talk about foreign activity on the market. Which sectors and stocks are foreigners most interested in this point in time?
Well, there are two main sectors. There's the food and beverage sector, especially likes of Nigerian breweries. And there's been a lot of talk about Nigeria's retail demand, the size of the market, and there's a lot of investors pushing in through there. Now, against that, they're also pushing into federal government bonds because of, obviously, with the NPR moving up and the yields becoming quite attractive, a lot of investors are moving to domestic bonds in that sense. But with the volatility in the Naira, some of that interest might curtail.
Power companies is an interest for foreign investors, but one can't get exposure to them through the stock exchange at this point in time. Are we likely to see listings of power companies going forward?
I think we are, because the government is looking to deregulate the power sector, and 18 discos and some of the power gen companies are going to be partly privatized, and investors are going to come in. Now, the government also estimates that they'll need about $10 billion annually over the next 5 to 10 years from the private sector to actually meet power demand, to move towards meeting power demand, and that they will require to make capital raising. So I think some of the privatized entities will come to the public markets to do that capital raising. So I think in the next 18 to 24 months, we should see some of them listed, hopefully.
But of course, given the choppy trade that we're seeing in the market and the bear run at this point in time, are we likely to see those being delayed, perhaps being pushed further out towards the end of that 18-month period that you're citing?
Yeah, I think the stock exchange has announced a demutualization committee to look into demutualizing stock exchange, and also some of the reforms they're trying to put in place to increase liquidity and increase transparency in the market. Now, as those reforms are embedded in 2012, I think if those reforms are embedded, in 2012, I think there'll be more confidence in the market and more people will list.
Let's talk about the largest listed stock, Dangote Cement, rising by 0.3% on the week. There's been some interest in that stock as regarding its acquisitions or perhaps expanded capacity in the DRC and Ethiopia, yet the stock still trades at a discount to what it listed at last year. What's likely to move the stock higher beyond this price?
I think in Dangote Cement, we've always argued that its listing price was overvalued. And I think this performance of the market has shown this. Now, Dangote is showing that it can increase its capacity to try and meet the growing demand of cement in the sector. Now, investors are encouraged by that. But the real deal is, can they actually operate? Because operating a multinational cement company is quite complex, and they have to show that operational capability. Now, in terms of their listing, they had some really ambitious forecasts, which they haven't met, especially in the Nigerian market. And cement is power intensive. So until they can show that they have the operational efficiency, they have regular, cheap power in Nigeria to push those efficiencies forward, I think there'll be some who take a step back. Also, the fact that there's not very, because of the amount of stocks that were actually listed.
Only 5% at this point in time, as you say. Only 5% of that stock is free floating on the exchange.
And for some big institutional investors, some other investors, that's not liquid enough for them to put their money in. So I think until they see increased liquidity in the stock, I think it will continue to be a laggard.
Why is the company and management holding back from listing more of the stock on the exchange?
Well, the speculation in the market that the idea was that they were going to list internationally, either in the London Stock Exchange or another exchange. Obviously, with the global turmoil in a lot of the equity markets, that's probably been put on hold at the moment. And what they wanted to do was list at another international market and then release more stock into the local market. Now, until they do that, we have to wait until the company to come out with more concrete plans.
Kayode, a very quick comment on the banking sector and what we're seeing taking place there. We saw the likes of UBA, Stanbic, FCMB all gaining on the week, whilst larger listed stocks like GT Bank and First Bank fell into negative territory. What do you see playing out at this point in time?
I think at the moment, investors are relieved in the banking sector that there seems to be a resolution of the rescued banks, and that's engendered more confidence in the market. I think we're expecting to see some Q3 results start coming out, and I think the banks will show improved profitability, especially the likes of UBA, which everyone's looking at closely because their results generally have been poor in the last 24 months compared to their peers. And so people are taking positions in the fact that there could be a rosier picture in the banking sector.